Good morning, dear students. Dear students, today we will be learning unit number 3 Gopal and the Hilsa fish, additional questions and MCQs. So, short answer type questions. Question number 1. Why was everyone talking about a Hilsa fish? So, everyone was talking about a Hilsa fish because it was its season. Fisherman though of nothing but Hilsa fish. The buyers and the sellers all talked about Hilsa fish. Householders were happy to get Hilsa fish at a cheap price. So it was a time of a Hilsa fish. So all the people, even in the market, even in the king's palace, and everyone, people were talking about Hilsa fish, and fishermen thought but nothing about Hilsa fish. Second, why did the king snub a courtier who talked of Hilsa fish? The king had been hearing a lot about Hilsa fish. He thought his courtiers were different. When even they talked to Hilsa fish, the king could bear it no more, so he snubbed him. He asked him to behave like a courtier and not as a fisherman. So king was angry. The king was angry and he wanted everyone not to talk about a Hilsa fish. He doesn't wanted to talk about a Hilsa fish. Number 3. Why did the king feel sorry? In his anger, the king had snubbed a courtier. So king was so sorry because he had scolded a courtier and he didn't like it. He had boasted of having caught a big Hilsa fish. The courtier fell silent. He hung his head in shame. The king did not want to cause him anguish, so he felt sorry to keep his courtier in good humor. So he doesn't wanted to get angry and he just wanted to talk with them freely. So he asked sorry. What was the challenge which Gopal accepted? The king wanted Gopal to stop people from talking about Hilsa fish for some times. As its proof, he wanted Gopal to buy a Hilsa fish. He was to bring it to the palace without anyone asking him a word about it. Gopal accepted the challenge. So we know that in this chapter, the Gopal has accepted a challenge of bringing a huge and big Hilsa fish to the palace, anyone talking about it. What did Gopal's wife think of him when he went to buy a Hilsa fish? Gopal's wife thought that he had gone mad. It was so because Gopal had half shaved his face. He had simmered ash on his body and put on rocks. Rocks means dirty clothes. So, when Gopal was going to buy a huge and big Hilsa fish, he dressed him differently. So, the people's attendance should be only on him, not on the Hilsa fish. So, his wife thought he has gone mad. Why did the gatekeeper not let Gopal see the king? Gopal was dressed like a madman, so the gatekeeper did not let him enter the king's court. There are two long type question answers. How did the people react when Gopal started towards the palace after buying a Hilsa fish? The children laughed at Gopal. He seemed comic to them in his rocks off with half shaven face. Many grown-ups thought that the people was Gopal was a madman. There were some people who thought he was a mystic. The important point was that everyone's talking about Gopal. They didn't talk of the Hilsa fish, which he carried in his hand. When he reached the palace gate, the gatekeeper refused to let him in. So we know that Gopal had done three things. He shaved his face half, then he put a clothes, and then he sprinkled ashes on his body. That way he looked totally different and went through the market and the place he was carrying Hilsa fish. The people was just wondering at Gopal, not at the Hilsa fish. How was the gatekeeper finally complained to let Gopal meet the king? When the gatekeeper did not allow Gopal to enter the palace, Gopal made much noise. He began to dance and sing loudly. The people on the gate were saying different things. Some called him crazy, some wanted him to be thrown out at once. All these voices reached the king. He ordered his servants to bring the man to him at once. Thus, the gatekeeper was finally complained to let Gopal meet the king. So, what happened? When he reached near the gate, the gatekeepers were not allowing to let him in. So he complained. To whom he complained? He differently complained. He started to sing loudly. He started to dance. People were just talking about the noise. So at last the king allowed Gopal to let him in. Now let us go. Now let's go through the objective type questions. Choose the correct option. Read the statements given below and kick the option you feel is the right. The king was fed up. The king was fed up with of the talk of HILSA fish. Gopal was clever, so he disguised himself. Gopal had a clever mind, so he disguised himself. Number 3, the king challenged Gopal to bring the huge HILSA to the palace. Gopal wished to fulfill the dream of the king. It was important to execute things which were 3 in number. Most of the people thought him to be a madman. So in these 6 questions we saw the king was fed up of the talk of HILSA fish. Gopal was clever, so he disguised himself. Disguised means he put ash on himself, half shaved, blew the dirty clothes and went to the palace. The king challenged Gopal to bring the huge HILSA to the palace. Gopal wished to fulfill the dream of the king, which were 3 in number. It was important to execute things, which was 3 in number. Most of the people thought him to be a madman. Number 7. The king had to order dash allow him in. The king ordered his servants to allow him in. The king inquired why Gopal had come in that guise. Gopal early reminded the king of the challenge. Gopal clearly reminded the king of the challenge. The day was different as no one talked of the HILSA fish. Gopal was different person. He had dared to achieve the impossible. The man carrying the fish seems to be more important. So dear students, here are the 12 MCQs in which we have talked about Gopal and the HILSA fish, how the Gopal went to the palace, how he reminded the king. So these questions and MCQs you have to write down in your notebook with a good handwriting. This is the part of our revision of Unit 3. Have a good day and thank you to all.